Grace Quigley is a fantastic film. It's very dark, but it's absolutely fabulous. This was released in 1984. It's directed by Anthony Harvey and written by A. Martin Zweiback and stars the wonderful Katharine Hepburn and Nick Nolte. And it's because of Hepburn that I watched this. I wouldn't have even heard of it if she hadn't been in it. But it's absolutely one of those films where I watched it for Hepburn, but I'm really glad I had an excuse because it is wonderful. If you like dark comedy, I think this could really appeal. Grace Quigley, played by Hepburn, witnesses a hitman killing somebody. This, of course, is Seymour, played by Nick Nolte. And one thing leads to another, and she ends up at his door asking him to kill her. She'd had various failed attempts at her own life, and she wants him to do the job for her, basically. And he's not interested. He doesn't really want to do this, but there is a moment where she says she's not blackmailing him, but he should do it. The implication, of course, that she actually is blackmailing him. And before he finishes her off, she actually rounds up some other elderly individuals. I should point out that this is in the 1980s, so Katharine Hepburn is of a certain age. And then other people of a similar age start to find out about this service that Seymour is finally offering. And he basically starts to bump off all of these old people. And that is dark. It really is grim, but it's also funny. There is a really good amount of comedy in this. But it's not just about that. There are deeper things about obviously right and wrong and what it might feel like when you get to a certain age. And there's one character who talks about the fact that if all you think about is your own demise, what's the point in living? And it offers a lot of really interesting perspectives and thoughts, and it does it in a way that's very clever, but also while being funny at times. It is very dark though, and the use of music and then silence was very effective and very well done at various moments throughout this. And while I say it's a comedy, it is a dark comedy, it does get quite intense and quite serious at certain times, and it's really fascinating to watch. And also the relationship between Seymour and Grace Quigley is also very thought-provoking and definitely could maybe suggest a lot about what Seymour's life might have turned out like if he had a maternal figure in his life. So there is a lot going on here, and there are a lot of different things that you can get from this, and I think it raises a lot of interesting questions and puts forward a lot of interesting perspectives. So if you dig deeply into it, there is a lot going on and it has a lot to offer. On the surface level, there's some dark comedy, quite a lot of dark comedy. It is certainly not for people who don't like this kind of dark humour. It's not going to be a film for everybody, but I absolutely loved it. Grace Quigley was a fantastic character, and I loved her. And obviously I'm slightly biased, very biased, because I'm in love with Katharine Hepburn, but even that aside, if Grace Quigley had been played by somebody else, I still think she's a very well-written character who brings about this really interesting story. And Seymour is I was going to say he's a likable character. I suppose he's likable in this, but it's also important to remember that he is somebody who kills people for money. Obviously, in this film, what we see of his work, is that the right word? I suppose it is. What we see of his actions is what people are asking him to do to themselves. So it's slightly different, but obviously it is still important to remember at the end of the day he is a hitman. It's a very complex situation to be in, but the film handles it all expertly, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. If you like dark humour, if this sounds like something that could appeal to you, I absolutely recommend it. I completely understand if somebody looks at this and thinks, this isn't for me, because it definitely isn't going to be for everybody. But I loved it. Grace Quigley is a brilliant film, and Katharine Hepburn was as fantastic in it as I knew she would be. Easily one of my favourite Katharine Hepburn films. Absolutely no questions about that. Really thoroughly enjoyed it, and for the right audience, I definitely recommend it.